Another roar at Murrayfield as Sione Tuipulotu, the Scottish captain, picks up the Calcutta Cup. It's back in Scottish hands after a momentous win by 31 points to 20 against the old enemy here at Murrayfield, and Scotland loving it and deservedly back in their hands. A fantastic performance, and England have to go home and think again, that is for sure. Let's have a look at the table then, and amazingly already only France can win the Grand Slam. In terms of the championship, there's still loads to play for, of course, but France, who play in Cardiff tomorrow against Wales, the only team who could win the Grand Slam. John Barclay, how about that?
I don't know what it is about this fixture. The games since 2018 have all almost been replicas of that, just wildly open, and I don't know whether the games and the style of games that it seems to produce, it definitely suits Scotland. I was chatting to Johnny up there, and in the unstructured, that's where Scotland are at their best, and we questioned whether there would be a reaction, and undoubtedly there was, not just in their intent, but also their accuracy across the board. It wasn't a perfect performance, but their intent, their mindset in the game, their ability to be brave with the ball and make hard decisions was superb, and Scotland needed to bounce back, and they did.
Absolutely. Dan, what are your thoughts on that? As I said, it was a deserved Scottish victory there. No English man or woman could argue with that.
Absolutely. Scotland were brilliant in terms of they got their game model on the pitch and they moved the ball into the 13 channel. They played with pace, they played with tempo, they took risks, and they were just better in all areas than England today. England will go home and lick their wounds. I thought they were a little bit one-dimensional today. I thought they clearly had dominance in the set piece, in the maul and the scrum. But off the back of that, I thought they were a little bit one-dimensional. I thought that 1 or 2 tries from 11 visits into the Scottish 22 at this level just doesn't get it done. And there's a lot of pressure on England now to sort of, all the talk before the tournament was, can they get to Paris for a Grand Slam decider, championship on the line? They've got a fair bit of work to do to catch France at the minute off the back of that performance.
They absolutely have. Johnny, at 31-13 with 20 minutes left, you said to me, England are very capable of winning from here. They just weren't clinical enough, were they, in that last 20 minutes?
No, I think they had all the ingredients they needed. They had some good set-piece dominance up there, which was giving them penalties. Get towards the corner, line-out was still working strong. Players were running the ball up. Shape was still good, but you could just see that with each minute that ticked by, with each knock-on, and the crowd cheering Scotland coming back, just kept giving away those key opportunities. But this was what we said at the beginning. This is the challenge that England needed. Challenge that structure, challenge that precision, challenge that kind of sense of inevitability. And today it just wasn't there. But the energy from these guys over here, the talent in that open field, the footwork, the togetherness, the belief, everything, they held it, and they fully deserve to be receiving all of this. Good for them.
Absolutely good for them. And it just shows that if England want to get up there, if anybody wants to get up there with South Africa, who are #1 in the world, there is that discernible gap between them and the rest at the moment.
Yeah, and I think England are definitely moving towards that space, and will continue again to move towards that space. But it isn't just that conviction in those key moments. You just know that those balls are going to stick, and that you have that sense in the mind of that patience, that kind of, just keep going, and it will come.
Well, Maro, another tough visit to Edinburgh. As you're thinking back on the game and the performance, where do you think England fell short today?
As you said, it was a tough game. There were pivotal moments in the game, both sides of the half, that got away from us. I think we just have to take a hard look at the game and reassess and come back better for next week.
The opening 20 seemed to be where a lot of the damage was done. Is there anything, thinking back now, that you guys maybe could have done better in anticipation of what you would know would be a ferocious Scotland response?
I guess in the first 20 minutes, as you said, we gave away a couple penalties, we gave away field position, and ultimately when we got into their side of the pitch, we didn't probably convert as much as we wanted to. But the nature of the beast, this is Six Nations rugby, all the teams are good. We'll have to lick our wounds and get back.
Yeah, and you go again next week and against Ireland. I guess, as you're thinking about it now, what are some of the quick lessons that you'll look to improve upon to get your Six Nations campaign back on track?
Well, we need to start well. We need to start the game well. We need to start the game with accuracy and precision. We didn't quite do that today.
All right, thanks, Maro. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Cheers, Mark. Certainly a happy Scotland cap. And Greg, let's start with the coach, Gregor Townsend. Relief after what's been a hugely challenging week. What do you got to say about him?
Yeah, it's a life of a coach, isn't it? it's a fine line. But listen, I think Gregor's always been pretty consistent around his message, and he would have been disappointed last week, probably more so the way Scotland started that game. But yeah, let's talk about today. And I think he talked about Scotland being aggressive, ambitious. You heard Finn Russell talk there about encouraging Scotland to keep playing at half-time, and I think he really saw that, and that's ultimately where Scotland took the game away from England today. Really brave, even in the first half, and great decision-making when England picked up that early yellow card. Really smart calling from the half-backs to get that ball into space and ultimately let Scotland go ahead and score some tries.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the Scotland back line, all the British and Irish Lions and the style of rugby they play, but actually it's maybe the things that England have been good at recently that Scotland were better. The kick chase, winning the 50-50s, getting the calls. You kind of need that sometimes so that you can play the game you want to.
Mate, you need it all the time, actually, because I think it's like test match rugby. Sometimes it doesn't need to be pretty. You got all the unseen work. Like there's been a lot of noise about Kyle Steyn. How good was he today? You know, chasing kicks, Rory Darge going in, breakdown pressure. It's all the little moments in the game that really add up. And the scrum was starting to squeak a little bit for Scotland, but they made some subs. Were brave, used their bench, and the subs that did come on today made a real difference and really shored up that Scottish team.
So Scotland get the win after a disappointment from last weekend. As Gregor said, as Sione, they've all said it now, we'll enjoy tonight, but how do they take this forward? What's the key?
The key is, I think, just the internal focus within the group. They just got to go back to the drawing board, what's worked well for them, make sure they train well, recover well. I know that they're going away, I think, to Spain next week, luckily enough for them, get some warm weather, but just that, forward focus now, and I think the result today has blown the championship wide open, and I think, Scotland are going to be fancying themselves, probably going down to Wales. They've got France here next as well, and France don't like coming here either.
So you're saying Scotland can win the Six Nations?
Scotland can win the Six Nations, right, definitely. After today, they're back on track. A week's a long time in sport.
There we go. You heard it first. Greg, pleasure for having you with us. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Topsy. Well, this is the interesting thing because, Dan, you were putting Finn on the spot about being professional. John, this is it. As I said, the last 6 Calcutta Cups, Scotland have won 5 of them. The last 6 games against France, Scotland have won 1. The last 6 games against Ireland, they haven't won any of them. This is great. No one's pouring cold water on the celebrations in Edinburgh tonight and around the country, but they need to back it up.
They need to back it up, and Finn's spoken about that, Sione's spoken about that, Gregor Townsend's spoken about that, so we know that's what their focus will be. And peaking for international test matches, it's hard to get it emotionally right every single week. It is, and I think that's probably what separates the very best sides in the world that have that, and the drop-off maybe isn't as big. I look at last week, and I don't want to go back to too much. I'd rather focus on tonight, quite frankly. But the first 20 minutes, they weren't emotionally right. You can tell from the game 20 minutes in. And Gregor's speaking about the first 20 minutes, the bravery, the aggression, the intent. You get up to Grisnard, it was 17-0. It's a completely different game at that point. You're in the game, so there's something about this fixture undoubtedly in this stadium, down at Twickenham also, that we've seen from the Scottish side. But it's a tricky one because those results against the other nations, it doesn't stack up.